Awesome. So thanks again, everyone, for tuning back in to Getting Real with Rohn. I'm here with one of my guests, Monique. What's amazing about Monique is she's multi-talented. She has a very, very unique perspective on modern dating. And I would say, this is a very traditional point of view. I know one of my last guests I spoke to also had a very traditional view. And I like speaking with guests that have that type of perspective, because I think in today's society, we're always so focused on things that I feel like really don't matter, right? Like running and trying to chase money and running. And of course, those things are needed. But we live in such a hookup culture that I think that, for me personally, because I have daughters, I believe it's so toxic, right? Because you carry that energy with you everywhere you go, no matter who you with. Even if you're just associating with somebody, you carry that energy with you. I'm very big. I may sound a little hoopla, I don't know, kumbaya when I say, but I believe in energy, and I believe in the people that you hang out with. Very much so dictates the way that you act and associate and how you move about life. And that's why when I met Monique now about a year and a half ago, we went to this business mixer in Orange County. I met a lot of interesting people, but only a handful of people actually stood out. And Monique really stood out. So Monique, if you can introduce yourself to my audience and just let them know who you are, what you do, and then we can kind of just get rolling from there.
Okay. Yes. So my name is Monique DeLeon, and I am a native here of Southern California, born and raised. I travel internationally as well as nationally, leading praise and worship. So I sing. I'm an author. I've written a couple of books, which I actually brought with me, so that way you can take a look. And I have a mini podcast myself. It's only 10 minutes or less. It's called Bite Size Insight. I have online courses, and I also have a mentorship program to encourage people, especially being a single person in the world that we're living in today, and how to navigate singleness, dating. So that's kind of what I do. A few things.
I love that. And you've traveled quite a bit. I was reading a little bit up on you. You've gone to like Russia. You've gone to like different parts of South America. Where else? Where were you going? You went on a tour recently, right?
Yes. So I've been to 18 countries so far.
Oh my goodness.
So that is
that's incredible.
In climbing.
Wow. Okay.
My last trip was to South Africa, Johannesburg.
That's right. You were preaching for the youth there, right?
Yeah. So I was there for 2 weeks, and I was requested to come originally because of this first book, which is called Pursuing Purity Under Pressure. And they specifically wanted me to go to schools, junior high and high schools, and teach on abstinence and the why behind the wait, and actually the blessing and the benefit, because while American culture and society is promiscuous, but it's even more so over there, and where they have like teenagers that are full-blown AIDS at like 16 years old because of sexually, they're just so promiscuous. So they wanted me to come in to bring a different perspective, and also, if a girl gets pregnant, she no longer can go to school. Like, you're automatically out. And so there was one school that I went to that there was 4 girls that were pregnant, but the principal, he still allowed them to stay. And even though, we have a different faith, he was Muslim and he knew I was, Christian, but he's like, I like the message that you bring. So you have, free reign to speak and share and teach, because, my students need this. And so I did that for 2 weeks. I was in junior highs and high schools. And,
you know what I think that's beautiful about that? Like, irregardless of like, I think that the idea of being choosy about who you're with, not just like sexually, but also just in general, like who you're with, I think there's power in that. I don't think I actually believe that there's power in that, because even now, I have 2 daughters, and my oldest daughter's 12, and she's at that age where her body and her hormones are, she's very aware that she likes boys. Yeah. Right. And she's like not shy about it.
Developing more.
Yeah. 100%, and like, it's, as a father, it scares me, because I'm like, oh, this isn't my little girl anymore. Like, you're not into like Barbies and baby toys and like cute little things like you're into Roblox and like hanging out with your friends and you want to have sleepovers and so like when I think about this concept of purity and making sure that you're very choosy about who you're with in your life, that transcends religion. For parents, for people that are out there, and I want to get into the older generation really soon, but like for the parents that are out there, I know that you started your religious journey around 12 or 14, right? Was what I was reading that.
I started doing like into music, and then I would do like street evangelism with my mom, like around like 11 years old.
Wow. Okay. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, what are some influences or teachings that have helped you while growing up to develop this mindset of abstinence, of purity, of being very choosy about who you're with?
I think the first thing was when I was in junior high. I was either 11 or 12, and I had a friend's parent call the house because they found condoms in my friend's backpack, and we were in 6th grade. And I was like, no, I didn't know anything about that. I didn't know that's what she was doing. I had no idea. And so unfortunately, like that girl, she became very sexually active very young. And then when I got into high school, I had quite a few girlfriends that got pregnant in high school. And I saw kind of like the emotional drama that they were going through and trauma with guys. I remember being 15 and I had a classmate that she didn't know who the dad was because for 3 weekends in a row, she slept with a different guy. And so she didn't know which one she was pregnant from. Yeah. And so she asked me to pray for her because I always offered prayer for people and stuff. And so it was one of those things where it was just like, this is actually kind of sad, like in this situation at such a young age. And I guess I just kind of came to the realization, like, I think it's better if I just wait. One, I knew like as a part of my faith, but even outside of my faith, I just saw just in a natural way, girls being so emotionally tied to guys. And so I just see the roller coaster emotionally that they're on when you're sleeping with someone and then they dump you and they start, they get with someone else right away, like a week later. And so I saw that and I learned that at a young age just by observing people. And so that's why for me, myself, I made that decision. And, I had a great influence from my mom and how my mom raised me. And then, being at church and because I was very involved in church. So I was always busy. So I kept busy in the sense of like, I'm at rehearsals and practices and events and, I'm singing a lot and stuff. And so, but I just saw even just in a natural way, like just all the emotional problems and hangups that I saw at a young age in friends of mine.
Wow. So it was this early experience that kind of molded your mindset into thinking, wow, what my friend is going through is actually kind of sad. Mm-hmm. Like it's really unfortunate. And it's unfortunate in a way that much like in a way that most everybody makes mistakes is it's brought upon ourselves. Right. Mm-hmm. And it comes down to like a few things. One, it comes down to principles, right? So, it comes down to the set of principles that are either passed down to us or how we, who, like even in your case, right? Who knows what her, home life looked like? Who knows what she was going through? Like, those are like factors that play a big role into it. And I think that, you're very fortunate to have grown up in a home where it sounds like you were molded and taught the right things at the right times, which is very, very fortunate because so many of us don't have that opportunity, and I think that right now this is a perfect opportunity for people that are growing up, teens to young adults, there's so much information out there that you can learn so much from different avenues.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Okay. So I want to switch gears here a little bit. Let's talk about modern dating for people that are in the age bracket of like 25 to 35, right? You're in an age bracket now, like that age bracket is you pretty much understand where you're heading in life. You know where you're going, you know what you want for the most part. If you're in your 30s and your 20s, I didn't know what the heck I wanted. Even now, like I'm 32, I still feel like there's a few things that are ambiguous, right? Uh-huh. Yeah, still trying to figure it out, And I recently separated from my wife. This was like 7 months ago now. So I barely started dating again just to understand the landscape that I'm in. Not that I want to continue dating. I think that I'm kind of over that. I've done 2 months of actual dating, and I don't know, like, to me, from my perspective, and you can give me some insight from your perspective, but from my perspective, like, it's for me, it's very toxic, right? Like, I down in like apps like Bumble and Tinder and what's the other one? Hinge, right? And it's like swipe, 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 right? There's no authenticity to it. There's no reality to it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, it's not like, you know, I'm sure that your parents have this beautiful way they met, like bumping into like at a grocery store, at a church event, or like at like somewhere, like something real, you know what I mean? Like, how did they meet? I'm curious. How did your parents meet?
It wasn't. It's like, my mom was like, no, no. See, my parents divorced when I was 7.
Okay.
So my dad wasn't really, like, he was kind of aloof. And my father, I didn't have, like, honestly, the best childhood in as far as that goes, because my father was an alcoholic. My parents divorced at 7. And my dad was just kind of aloof. Like, he never showed up for anything, any of my events at school or anything like that. So that's why I honestly, like, just attribute how I am, like, to God, because God really preserved me in a situation where I could have, because that is what a lot of girls go through, looking for love, but they're looking for all the wrong places. And a lot of times it's because they're lacking a father. And that's why I'm so glad to hear you talk about your girls and you want to be involved and you want to be there, because that really is going to be a help. Because what a dad really does instill confidence in you as a girl. And you as a father are teaching your girls how they should be treated and what they should not accept and what they should accept when it comes to a man. But when girls don't grow up and they don't have that, that is why there's a tendency to be promiscuous, because they're always looking for love and that acceptance and that affection. And so, no, generally, like, my parents' situation, it wasn't like an ideal one in that sense, even how they met and whatnot. But most generally what you're saying, yes, meeting people back in the day was much more authentic. I mean, you have, like, there's like so many, like, grocery store stories of, like, they met in a grocery store, or at like, church, or
like
parking
she was
lot.
going for the cookies and cream ice cream and our hands touched, right? Like,
it's more, or even just being in a coffee shop. And that is how a lot of people used to meet. They would see someone just sitting there reading a book, and they'd come over and just like a natural conversation would happen. But in the culture and we're today, like, no one knows how to do that anymore. Yeah. Like, it's so surface level only, and it's so superficial that it's really unfortunate. And that's why I think people have a hard time when it comes to dating, because it's like, you don't know who's real. Or I had a guy tell me one time, because I talk a lot about singleness and stuff, and he's like, well, if you're not a 6'6" man, then women won't even look at you. I'm like, what is a 6'6" man? He said 6 foot, 6 pack, 6 figures. And so, and I mean, in the culture in today, there's some truth to that, because women have tended to become so superficial. Looking at this. And honestly, social media, I believe, is to blame for that. Yeah. To be honest.
You know, in my personal experience, I think that that's like a younger generation thing. I don't think that that's my generation, because I can open up my old Tinder profile and I'll show that guy, like, I'm getting tons of matches, and I am not 6 foot. I'm like 5'9", 5'10" on a hot day. Right? Like, like I definitely don't make 6 figures yet. And what was the other one? 6 pack? Oh, I definitely have a dad bod, 100%. Like, and I was still getting matches and still going on dates.
You know, most women prefer a dad bod, by the way.
So I don't even know.
They really do. They really do.
I think that sometimes my humor carries me through, hopefully.
Oh my gosh. So humor that goes a long way.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Humor goes a long way. And yes, but then I think in the 30s range, it's kind of like, I think some people feel like a lot of people have so much baggage from their 20s.
For sure.
So I think that's where them trying to weed things out and sort things out, because a lot of times, because, you know, your mindsets are developed though in that late teens and 20s when it comes to dating the opposite sex. And so I think that still gets taken into the 30s when dating someone if you haven't matured and if you haven't grown or if you haven't, developed as an individual yourself to see past certain things.
Yeah.
And so I think that is where a lot of times the challenge comes in for people.
And I couldn't agree with you more because, my recent breakup had forced me down a path of self-reflection that, I've been down plenty. I mean, I've had definitely epiphanies throughout my lifetimes at key moments in life. But, going down this path of self-reflection, self-accountability, reading different books that have adjusted my mindset and thinking, right? And realizing that, Sun Tzu says that, no, I think it's not Sun Tzu. It is, I believe actually it is Sun Tzu that says, know thyself.
Yeah.
And that statement alone, know thyself, it's so simple, but it's actually so profound because so many people are out in this world looking for something to complete themselves. But what they don't realize is that you are already complete. And it just takes that self-reflection to realize that once you've learned to love yourself and really, really know who you are, you don't need anybody else's approval. You don't need anybody else's love or anybody else's affection to better you. What in all reality, what it comes down to is choosing a partner or a mate or a friend is enhancement of each other. And that's it, right? Jim Rohn, one of my favorite mentors, says that when you're in a relationship, you shouldn't say, oh, I'll scratch my back if you scratch yours. I'll love you if you love me. Rather, I'll love me for you. And if you take care of yourself for me, I'll take care of myself for you. And it's really that synchronicity of you being independent together, right? And choosing that partnership together. And that's one of the biggest self-reflections I've gone through this journey, and what I see with this world that we're living in now, that only a few people really realize that. And I see that what you're really teaching at the core of it, what I really believe at the core of it is really self-love, right? Because you don't need to have a sexual partner. You don't need to have an intimate partner. If at the end of the day, you know that your relationship, if you're religious, your relationship with you and whatever God that you believe in is strong, and your relationship with yourself is strong, right? Because those two things, right? I'm a very spiritual person. I don't believe in religion as an organization, but I believe without a shadow of a doubt, none of this would exist without God. Like, there's just no way, right? Just the way things are designed and put together, like complicated puzzle pieces, there's just no way, right? And because of that strong belief, as a God-fearing man, right, I look at situations in life through a different lens. One, through a lens of I'm very pessimistic, and I like nitpick things. I'm like, is this real or is this like a scam? I'm getting scammed right now, you know? And then through a lens of like, you know, being able to take a step back and pray about it real quick, right? And just like, in whatever prayer sound, I say prayer because that's the language that you understand the most, right? Because that's who I'm sitting in front of. But a lot of people, that may be self-reflection, self-talk, right? You know, praying to your higher self, whatever it is that you believe in, kudos to you. But at the end of the day, if you have strong faith in something, believe in that something. And this is my question for you. Now that let me get off my soapbox. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
But what you're saying is true, though. If I could just interrupt,
yeah,
because
please.
In the second book I wrote, which is called Satisfyingly Single for Now, I have a chapter in there that says, know yourself, because that is a part of the problem. Because I think people are too scared of their own heart, and they don't even know their own heart, in the sense of they have been told something, but have never actually stopped to say, do I really like this? Do I really want this? Is this something that's actually really good for me? Or is it because people are telling me and suggesting to me that it is? And so it's a part of like, and I use dating examples in the sense of like, no, actually, I don't like that. I'm not comfortable with someone who treats me like that. Actually, no, I'm not going to accept that as that's okay. And that's what I'm saying. I think people have not honestly taken the time to get to know their own heart, their own self. And that's one of the chapters that I have in there because it's important.
That's beautiful, because that comes down to, wow, there's so many correlations to this concept of knowing yourself, because the more you know yourself, the higher your standards become for you.
Yes.
Right? Because you're like, I'm not going to accept this as okay.
Yeah.
And neither should, anybody else, or neither should my daughters in my case, or neither should, my friends or whatever it may be. And it's funny because it comes down to also like what I was talking about earlier is your association, right? Because who you hang out with is who you become.
Yes.
Right. And I'm sure that
100%.
your association is handpicked.
Yes.
Right. You're not like just hanging out with anybody.
No.
Right. You can definitely be in close proximity with somebody, but actually like
doing life with
them.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're very picky about it, because if you're hanging out with a crowd, let's just say like, for example, like you have two best friends that, oh girl, you do your little sobriety thing, like whatever you want to do, girl, we support you, but we're going to make our money on OnlyFans, right? At the end of the day, you just wouldn't associate with them because that's not who you are.
Yeah.
Like if you're not a smoker, you're not going to hang out with smokers, because eventually at one point in time, they're going to be smoking and you're going to be like, you know what, all right, I'll just try it.
Rub off on
you. I'll just try it one time. And, not to say that smoking's bad for anybody if they smoke, but, to each your own, if something's going to kill us one day, right? But, if that's what if you're not a smoker, you're not going to hang out with smokers, right? So how has you navigating this pathway of being a modern woman, right, with these traditional views, like, how do you navigate that? How do you choose your friends?
I have a really close friend. She's become like a best friend, actually. And it's been really nice because her and I are on the same journey. She herself is a virgin as well. She's waiting until marriage to have sex. And we met because we were both singing at an event. And that's how we met. So we didn't know each other before that. And we were both guests for this event. And that's how we met. And so, and even other girlfriends I do have, and even guy friends. I have quite a few guy friends. I used to do a podcast with a couple of guys, and they themselves, they're not virgins, but they're remaining abstinent. They have made that choice that they're from now on going to wait until marriage. And so I think it's something that, if you're really seeking that you will find it. And as someone, I'm, asking God, like, just bring the right people in my life that should be there, remove the ones that shouldn't. And so, and God does, and he'll orchestrate things. And I think, but you also put yourself in environments where you will find these people though. You know what I mean? And so whether it's you volunteer for something, that's how people meet people, church events, whatever, you go to temple, whatever, or just online events. And, they've got those organizations now like meetups, and it's people that have the same interests as you. And that's what it is. And so that's what I'm saying. If you really are seeking, you will find. And so, so I have definitely been particular with who I do life with. Now, in the general sense, like you're saying, I used to do a Bible study for young adults for 11 years. And every other Friday night, they would come to my house. And I had a really good group, but I didn't hang out with all those people. But they came, and it was a place that they felt like comfortable. And, it really built community. But I necessarily wasn't going to be hanging out with each person individually. You know what I mean? So
that makes sense.
So it's you have people in the broader sense that are in your life, but the ones that you actually do life with, yes, you do want to be careful, because what you said is true. And I know people will try to say like you talk about energy. Okay. So I talk about how sex is 3 parts. I said sex is spiritual, it's emotional, and it's physical. And even science has shown us that we can absorb and transfer energy. And so I talk about in the book, and when I was teaching in South Africa, how who you lay with matters, because whatever they're dealing with, that's going to transfer onto you. And I had a guy friend share how he used to be very promiscuous in his 20s. And he said that he would notice at certain points in his life that things would be different. And he would be like, why am I drinking more? Like, why am I doing this? Or why am I depressed? Like, by nature, I'm not a depressed person. I'm not a sad person. And so different things. And he said he realized one day it's the women he was sleeping with. And that's what they were struggling with. And that's what they were dealing with. And it's true. So that's like, it is spiritual. And that will transfer onto you, whatever people are dealing with.
I can 100% attest to this, because in myself, right, when I was going on these dates and experiencing these different energies and, being with different women, I noticed, and this is why I've taken a little now, and going on 2-month break from actually going on dates, and because I've realized that, right? Like before I used to talk about it and I used to just like, yeah, you're mixing energies, but like it's different when you actually experience it and you realize like, wow, I feel disgusting. Like after this 2-month period, you know, I went and hung out with a lot of people. And at the end of that period, I was feeling depressed. I was drinking a lot more. I was like drinking by myself. I'm like, why am I drinking by myself? Like no one's here. Like what the heck? Right? Like this is not my nature.
Yeah.
This is not my nature. Like this isn't who I am. I'm, you know, most people that know me in the industry that I'm in know me as, you know, I'm proud to say that I am the gentleman in the industry that I'm in. Like people know me as, oh, Rohn, that guy's a gentleman. Like I could feel safe around him. Right. Yeah. And I felt like I was so out of character when I was by myself. I felt like I had the need to be with somebody. Like I was like, I feel so lonely. I feel so sad when I'm by myself, right? That I need to be with somebody, right? And what I had realized and what I had lost along that way was it wasn't the loneliness, because I've been completely content being by myself. It was these mixings of energies that what I really craved, what my body really craved was cleansing. Like I wanted to cleanse. Like I didn't want, sorry, there's this little like fly that's like
This Nat has
wants
been
to be in the
bothering
podcast. What are your thoughts, Nat? But yeah, so it was like this cleansing, like this idea of like, I need to cleanse, like I need to be abstinent for a time in my life because like this isn't healthy, you know? And it's unfortunate that I'm the type of person, right? And I'm developing into the type of person that's no longer learning things the hard way.
Good.
Right? But like, it just sucks that there's periods of my life where I've had to learn things the hard way. Right. And some people, I mean, unfortunately that's a way that people learn because there's no major influence. But now I've listened to something that has opened my eyes, and it's like, I want to be excellent in every aspect of my life. Right. And hanging out with excellent people is the way to do that. Right. And I'm so glad that you're on here because I believe that the standard that you have for yourself is of excellence. Right. And I think that there are so many women and men alike that don't have that standard for themselves. Yeah. How do you build that? Like, how do you do that? How do you build that excellent standard for yourself?
I think definitely, I mean, for me, it will be spiritually and my relationship with God. I mean, that's where really my confidence comes from. But let's put that aside, because I understand that not everyone shares my faith. But it will be influences and who you hang out with for sure. That is something that definitely is going to influence you, is the people you hang out with and the way they live. And if they don't live a lifestyle that you're trying to live, then that's when you need new influences. You need new people in your life. And it's also learning to set boundaries. And I don't think people have really learned to set boundaries for themselves. And boundaries sometimes even in just friendships, not even just relationships, but because I've cut off friendships before. And so you need to set boundaries for yourself and the influences that you surround yourself with. And even what you're saying is like talking about, because yes, I understand not everyone's going to wait until marriage to have sex. I understand. But I just like to bring the perspective because honestly, it does help bring emotional clarity. Because when you're sleeping around with someone, your emotions automatically get tied to an individual. And the more that you do, you think you have something really deep with someone when you don't. It's actually surface level because you don't even know them. So honestly, when you're dating someone and being sexually pure, it does help with emotional clarity because that's how people run over roadblocks and red flags because they're like, oh, but the sex is so good. You hear people say that. And I'm like, yeah, but all these other things aren't. And you're not seeing it because you're just so true. Focused and enraptured in the sexual part. And so that's what I'm saying. Like it does help bring emotional clarity, but setting a standard is influence, boundaries, and honestly, discipline. I think we have not taught that and to this younger generation, but I grew up like being very disciplined in certain areas of your life. And a lot of times it's work. And I think people don't want to put in the work, but you see the outcome later on when you are disciplined. Like it's discipline to go to the gym. It is discipline to eat healthy. Like these are disciplines that people have in other areas of life, but they don't apply it to this area. And so those are ways to keep a standard for yourself is you've got to set boundaries. You got to have the right influences around you and be disciplined in different areas.
Yeah. Let me ask you something personal. Is in developing these standards, right? This influence, this boundaries and self-discipline, what are aspects in your own life that you've struggled with and making sure that, this is a standard that you want to keep for yourself?
Well, see, because I didn't have any boundaries at first. And so I talk about in that book, Pursuing Purity Under Pressure, how I almost did have sex with an ex-boyfriend. And it we went all almost there. And so it was like, I realized I didn't have any boundaries set. Like people will say, okay, well, I'm not going to do this or I'm not going to do that. But if it's not like a hard line in the sand for you, then you will. And if someone is pushing your boundaries, like, my boyfriend at the time was, and I didn't stop it, because I didn't want him to be mad at me, or I didn't want to upset him, or, that's what I'm saying is like, you have to come to a place where, no, I'm not doing this. And if you're trying to cross that line, then that's the end of it. But a lot of people don't do that for themselves. And that's what I'm saying. So I had to learn that myself because of the situation I was in. So after that, it was like, okay, no more. We're not coming this close again with anyone else in the future. And I've stuck to that. And so that's what I'm saying is, and I think so many times we're too concerned with what other people think and how they perceive our actions.
Yeah.
And we let that affect us. Mm-hmm. And so because of that, we do compromise, even in our own selves.
Yeah.
And I mean, that can go for any area of life. But in this area specifically, because I came to that point, it was like, okay, I didn't have any boundaries set. And I didn't realize that I didn't have any because I wasn't in that situation before. So I think a lot of times it's when you put yourself in a situation, in that moment, that's when you really realize, okay, this is a no. Like I'm not doing this.
Makes a lot of sense.
So that's what it was for me, is because I was in that situation. And then I realized I didn't even have any boundaries set for myself.
Yeah. I having deep conversations with several of my really close girlfriends, and not girlfriends intimately, but like girlfriends that are friends. Yeah. Strictly platonic. I have learned that a lot of the times at a younger age, it comes down to exactly what you said, boundaries. It's the idea of, if I don't do this for him or for her, are they still going to love me? Mm-hmm. Are they still going to stick around? Yeah. Right. It's also like being in a mindset of continually wanting to please people. Yeah. Right. And not just that transcends into the intimate sexual way, but also like other ways. Like, this is why so many reasons people get into toxic relationships is because they're constantly wanting to please people because they're so afraid of getting left. Yeah. Right. And it all circles back to what you're talking about. I mean, it makes so much sense, is influence, boundaries, and discipline, right? Like, I've never heard it that way. And it makes, like, the way you said it just clicked for me. Good. Because it just makes so much sense, right? Like, if I'm not trying to drink, I'm not going to go hang out at a bar with my friends. Mm-hmm. Like, you guys go do that. I'm not drinking, so I'm going to hang back. Or we can go to the movies, or we can go anywhere
I'm
you
meet
want.
Up with you afterwards or something. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, and then at the end of the day, if someone truly loves you, they're going to stick around whether you're having sex with them or not, right? Mm-hmm. Whether you're drinking with them or not, in a friendship way, right? Like, if someone truly loves you and respects you, like, those things matter long term if you decide to make this your forever partner. But like in the short term, those things really have a small significance, I know for me personally, I would say that, in a relationship, it's, to me, sex is important, but sex is like 20% of that, right? Because I think that sexual compatibility is very, very important, but there's so many other things that trump that, right? Mm-hmm. Like, being truly intimate with somebody doesn't mean that you actually have to have sex with them. Yeah. Like, being intimate could be like, going out on outings and spending quality time with your partner, doing things for each other, acts of service. Like, there's so many ways to be intimate that don't have nothing to do with sex. Right. So let me ask you this. So in order to get to this next question is, are you currently dating, or have you dated with men that have, or let me ask you this. Are you bisexual, straight? Straight. Okay. All right. Cause I don't judge, but that way I know what I'm talking about. Okay. Perfect. So, the men that you've dated, are you currently dating now?
No one right now.
Okay. And the men that you've dated in the past, have you found that it has been difficult for you to keep this type of standard that you keep?
No, because I actually only date men who are remaining abstinent themselves.
Okay.
So that too. And that's another thing, because if I'm someone who's like, you know what, I'm making the decision, I'm going to wait until marriage to have sex. But if I'm dating a man who hasn't made that same decision, like that's going to be really hard, cause conflict, frustration. So that's why I only date men who are choosing the same lifestyle. And so that's really important. And I think a lot of people aren't even like conscious of that, because I did a podcast interview a couple weeks ago, and one of the girls on it, she had been a year of like making a decision to wait until marriage. And, but she will date men who are sexually active. And she was like, I never even thought about that before. So that's what I'm saying. Like, she's like, oh, I never thought about that. And so that's why I'm like, no, it hasn't been difficult in the sense, because, you know, when I meet men, it's like, I'm pretty upfront about it, because I'm like building a whole like ministry and business out of what I do and what I teach. So it's like, I'm not shy or embarrassed to say that I'm a virgin. I'm waiting till marriage. Like it's not even that like, you know, big of a deal in the sense of like, oh my gosh, you know, but
you know what, not to interrupt you, but I think in this day and age, it is a big deal.
It is.
Right? Like I was recently talking to a friend last year, and, you know, we were talking, and the way that I just met this person, and the way that she was speaking, I was like, like you sound really innocent for your age. Like, have you been with anybody before? And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, like intimately, have you had sex? And she's like, no, I'm a virgin. And this person was like 23. Okay. You know, so like, but she was very embarrassed to say it, like very timid, you know? And I commended her. I was like, you should be really proud of yourself, because like, I know girls your age that are definitely not shy about sleeping around. Yeah. So like, you should be very proud of the decision that you've made to be the way you are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I try to encourage people too, because it's like, they are so embarrassed, and or if they're not a virgin, but they're someone who's chosen to remain abstinent, and it's been a lot of years. And I'm like, you know, this actually used to be a normal way of life for people.
100%.
You know what I mean? Like your great-great-grandparents, like this was a normal way of life. What people did is like they waited until marriage. Like that used to be a normal thing. Yeah. So it's not really a foreign concept. Like, but because of the sexual culture that we're in right now, that's why. And so, and I've had people that have felt like embarrassed for me, and I'm like, why? I'm not embarrassed about it. I'm like, I said, why would you try to make fun of me or put me down, someone who has demonstrated that I know how to practice discipline, I know how to practice self-control, because it ain't like I didn't have options. Hello. You know what I mean? I'm like, ain't like I couldn't have gotten some if I wanted to. Like, hello. Like, I've chosen not to. It's not like I'm this ugly, awkward girl that has no options. You know what I mean? So I'm like, but I've, you know, shown that I know how to practice discipline and self-control. Yeah. And I have a respect for my own self. You know, I'm like, you're trying to make fun of that when look at the rest of the culture. I'm like, so I don't understand how does that make sense? That you would try to put me down for demonstrating characteristics that I have that are good. Yeah. So that's why I'm like, don't be embarrassed about it. Yeah. You know what I mean? I have no like ill towards anyone that, you know, they choose a different lifestyle. I don't try to make fun of or put anyone else down who is a prostitute or who does OnlyFans. It's just, I try to encourage these girls, like, you know, you are worth more than that though. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? Like you have more to offer a man than just the sex that you can provide. And, you know, I hope you will see that one day. Yeah. You know, but I'm like, I don't ever try to put it in anyone's face or anything, but I definitely am not embarrassed about it.
I'm a big proprietor in like whatever it is that you do, like own it, you know? And for me, like at the end of the day, I know that my values are very traditional. And just like you're saying, like whatever somebody does, it is what they do. You know what I mean? It is like if the girl
people will do what they're gonna do.
People are gonna do what they want to do, and that's you know, to teach their own. We're in an era where, you know, the landscape of dating and the landscape of being an adult has changed so much, right? That I don't know. The only thing that I can hold on to is the values that I hold, the values that I hope that instill into my daughters, and the people that I choose to be around. You know, is that we all hold the same value. I mean, traditional values. Let me ask you this though. Okay, so you switching gears here as well is you do a lot. Like this just is one aspect of what it is that you actually do. Like this abstinence thing is just very small sliver of what it is that you actually do. You're also an artist as well, right? You sing, you're traveling, right? Like tell me a little bit about your art, you being an artist. Like what type of music do you make?
So I've been like leading praise and worship since I was a teenager. So like, worship songs if you go to a church, and I'm the one on stage like singing and stuff. And then for my own self, it's I've written some originals, and it's more of like a contemporary pop kind of a feel. And like, so they're not like church songs, but they have like a message of God in them, but it's not anything that's like, but it's something you'd hear on the radio type of a thing. Okay. So, nice. Yeah, so
like Taylor Swift style, like
contemporary pop. I wish I could play it for you. I wrote like this one single that did really well, and that actually opened up a lot of doors. And I did a lot of like interviews and a lot of events from this single that
That's
a
awesome.
friend. It's called "Keep Your Head Up," and so people like it because just the message in it, like "Keep your head up, you're gonna make it through." Keep your head up. I know His word is true. Through the rain, He'll see you through the pain. So keep your head up because you're gonna make it through. Okay. And so that's like the main part of the chorus, and so people really like that song. But it's like a pop kind of a feel.
Got it.
And so,
I like that. Reminds me of that Tupac song.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
The same thing. They're like, wait, like Tupac, keep your head up.
Keep your head up. Yeah.
Because people would tell me that also.
I love that. Okay, so maybe we could clip it. I don't know. Let's just pause for a second. Hopefully my editor can make it happen right here.
So keep your head up. You're gonna make it through. Keep your head up.
Boom.
Hopefully that works. All right. If not, we'll just cut this out. But okay, that's
music,
awesome.
And then writing books. So I've written those 2, and then I have an ebook as well.
I've already shown that one. I want to show this one actually.
Yeah. So that one's called "Satisfyingly Single for Now," and so it's
I love that.
teaching and encouraging people who are singles, like really how to do singleness well, learning to enjoy this season, doing all that you can in this season, type of a thing. And a lot of dating stories. There's a lot of like funny stories that people will be able to relate to because I share all kinds of stuff in there.
Ooh, I want to hear something fun. What's like a worst date experience that you've had?
Well, I mean, I've been stood up a couple times, so that sucked.
Dang it. Okay.
But yeah. Date experience would be I went on a couple dates with this one guy whom on the phone, great.
Yeah.
It's laughter, chemistry, all this stuff. But in person, complete opposite.
Yeah.
Shy, timid. So then I thought, because he was just nervous, so we went out again. Same thing. And then afterwards, like I felt bad for him because I was like, I just think you need to get your confidence up because it's like you can hide behind the phone. You can hide, but when I'm face to face looking at you, completely different.
Yeah.
So that was just like, I feel sorry for this guy. But the only ones, nothing crazy.
No?
Just I've been stood up.
So like my like go-to test when I was going on dates was I play rock, paper, scissors with my date. Okay. Like I'm going to pay for drinks irregardless, but it's just like for me, I like to, it's like a test of character. Dang it. Now I'm giving it away, but, but this is like, I have to figure out something else, but whatever. So like I would play rock, paper. I just thought about it right now.
You're giving them the game,
I'm giving them the game, yo. Okay. So I play rock, paper, scissors. I'm like, rock, paper, scissors, loser buys the first round, right?
Okay.
So at this point, I try to get to the bar before and I open a tab.
Okay.
So even though they think they're paying for it, they're not paying for it. Yeah. But, so rock, paper, scissors, they lose. And if they're like, oh, it's a fun game, I'm actually going to pay for it. Then like, all right, cool. Like first test of character is like, it's not necessarily about paying for it, the drink. What it comes down to me is, are you the type of person that's willing to take care of somebody else? It's not about the money. The money is irrelevant. The drink's like $10. You know what I mean? So it comes down to, are you the type of person that's willing to take care of somebody? And like, I remember like I went on this date, we rock, paper, scissors. I won. I lost. So I was like, all right, I'll buy the first round. So I bought the first round. I'm like, all right, stick around. Let's go. Rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. She loses. And then, I'm like, all right, like, it's time for you to pay. Like, where's your card? Like, and she's like, hell no, I'm not paying. Like, you're tripping, right? Which I get it. Like, in a girl's perspective, I don't blame her, But it was just like a funny, awkward situation I was in. I was like, what do I do? Do I tell her that I was going to pay for the drink anyways? And like ruin the facade of like,
You just
or,
wanna see how she,
I just want to see how she would react. Luckily, we had good chemistry in the beginning, so I didn't really care. I laughed about it, and I ended up telling her like, "Oh, it's just like a little game I play." I'm like, "Which you failed, right?" And she started laughing, and I was like, "She's like, no, honestly, I just don't know you that well." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, whatever, you sure?" Like just jokingly, right? Not being a jerk about it, but we had a good time. But it was just funny. That was like one of the funny experiences where this little rock paper scissors thing kind of like backfired on me. And I was like,
how funny.
oh shoot, like how do I navigate this awkward situation of having to pay now? Like having to actually like, she's like, no, you pay, you're the man. I'm like, oh my gosh. So that's funny. So like okay, this is a question that came up right now in my head is, do you go to like waitingformarriage.com? Like where do you go to like find these guys that are abstinent? I mean, in this day and age,
people are like, how are you finding mostly church?
Okay.
Like, you'll find, So for me, church, someone else slid in my DMs. A couple guys have slid in my DMs because they, when you see my page, you know what I'm about.
Yeah.
And, so, they messaged me to say like, I so respect that. And like, I myself am actually remaining abstinent. So that's what I'm saying. So it's like, in ways like that. So, I mean, social media definitely has been something.
Yeah.
And then as of late, because a different podcast interview I did and people had watched it, the same thing, like in the DMs. And then there are definitely men who I think don't think I'm as serious as I am. And so it's like, no, I actually practice what I preach.
That was actually, that's perfect. Because that was my next question is, not to sound like an asshole, but like in my past experience, I have been with women that were abstinent, and it was more of like, and I get it. Like I get why now, but like back then it was just like, yeah, whatever. Like,
Yeah.
But it was more of like a defense mechanism to guys that like didn't want to try hard to be with him. Right. And it was more of like they wanted to. It was kind of like a sense of more deeper version of that rock paper scissors thing that I had, right? Like they wanted to see like how committed are you to me before I give this up, right? So it wasn't like I'm an abstinence forever, but it was more like it would deter the guys that were more like jerky, right?
Yeah.
Like
honestly,
right?
So it weeds them out.
Yeah. So I could definitely see guys. Without knowing who you are, like from like if they just met you and you're like, oh yeah, I'm abstinent, I'm saving myself for marriage. I could see guys that are like, okay, yeah, like I'm gonna try to get with her. You know what I mean? So how do you navigate that? Yeah. Like how do you?
Well, because that was interesting because I did that even because I've done online dating and I would even put that in my profile right up front.
Yeah,
I said, just so you know, I am not having sex until I'm married. So if that's not for you, then just keep it pushing.
I know guys be like, challenge accepted, right? Like, so I'm just saying.
Exactly, they would. Yeah. And I completely know and I completely understand. And so as you get to talk to me, I think that's when men actually realize, okay, this girl's
like,
serious.
This girl's about
like,
it. Like,
while they may
fake.
be attracted to me physically and they enjoy, our chemistry and personality, but it's like, when you actually do start having conversations with me, I think because people tell me the same thing, like there's kind of like an innocence about you in a sense. And so, which is a compliment. But it's like, as you get to talk to me, they catch it. Like, okay, nah, this chick is serious.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you, so like, have you ever gone on multiple dates where you like not knew, but like you had an inclination, like, I don't know if this guy's actually about it. Like, I don't know if he's actually getting what I'm saying. Like, or is like, how do you tell? Like, how do you tell?
Well,
like,
they pretty much like just ghost me.
Oh, okay. They're just like, forget this.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty much like that.
All right. That makes sense.
Because it's kind of like, like, no, like, I'm like, you want to come to church? Like, I'm serious. Like, you want to?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. So if they're not about that lifestyle, then for them, it's like, all right, I'm just wasting time.
Yeah.
I'm not even going to bother. And that's fine. Okay. And I'm not offended.
Yeah.
And I'm not bothered. Like,
Teach your own, right? Okay, that's awesome. That is really, really cool. Now, I have a question. Okay, if you could go back, right? I love this question. I think I stole from Jay Shetty's podcast. Is what is the best piece of advice that you've gotten in your life?
Best piece of advice I've gotten in my life. Probably, I mean, it's definitely going to go back and pertain to like having a relationship with God. Like that is definitely something, because with that, I have just seen so much fruit and so much good things come out of my life because of it. And so keeping your heart open to God, keeping your heart open to him and getting to know him has definitely been the thing that, because ever since I was little, my mom is the one who really kind of like taught me about God.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you are raised in that kind of environment, when you're out in the world, it's like you're still going to have to learn to stand on your own for what you believe in. And like I went to public school my whole life. Like I didn't, I was offered drugs at school. I was, you know what I mean? But I just learning about God, that was something that really was impactful for me.
Yeah.
And so that was probably the best thing I was taught, was have a relationship with God.
Wow.
Learn about him. So that for me was definitely the thing that has preserved me, the thing that has kept me, because I've never done any drugs. I've never drank. I was never a club girl. Like
Yeah.
you're not going to find me dancing on the table with a drink in my hand. Like
That's funny.
I just never.
No country bars. No.
Although I do
square
like country
dancing?
line dancing though.
Okay. All right.
I took it in high school, and so it was actually kind of funny. I learned how to slap and leather and tush push and boot scoot and boogie. Like I learned all that stuff, and so it was a lot of fun.
That's cool.
But yeah, so it's like, and I have gone to places like that. Like a friend has birthday party, and so I've gone, but it's just I'm the only one like a water bottle. You know what I mean? Like sitting there, and I'm like, and so, but I just having that has been the difference in my life. Because like I said, dad was an alcoholic, and it's eventually what, led to his demise, and parents divorced when I was 7. And, so it's like, I didn't necessarily, and, struggled financially. And so it wasn't necessarily like naturally like really good, but having God like made the difference though.
From my personal experience, which I can only ever talk about, which is, this self-examination I've gone through, that statement is so true to me now more than ever, because, having a relationship with a creator that's higher than yourself, that gives you a deeper sense of purpose, like having that relationship with God now in my life, and by no means am I religious, but like I realized that for the past now like 12 years of my life, I have done it all on my own, and I have struggled all on my own and succeeded all on my own, and nothing ever was long lasting because that glue wasn't there. And what I've realized is that there's only so far you can get in life without a true sense of purpose. And knowing that there is somebody that is far more vastly powerful and knowledgeable than you. Not even somebody, something, right? I call that, we both call that God, right? Whatever anybody else wants to call that. But like God for me has definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things that have happened in my life that otherwise could not be possible without him, right? And because of that, like God to me is undeniable.
Yeah. And
to a lot of people, sure, whatever do you guys want to believe in? But to me, that is true. And I've realized at this point in my life, I can no longer live without God in my life, and that is so powerful. I love that. I wish that was a piece of advice I took to and held true at a younger age throughout my I would have been in a way better, completely different situation. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
and I think because I always, even as a child, experienced things where like that were supernatural, that was like, that had to be God. Like, I should have been dead by now. And, in like certain car accidents that I've been in and stuff. So it's like things like that. Like, can I tell you one?
Yeah, please do.
Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was 7 years old, and my mom and her friend had gone to like some like church meetings or whatever. And I was sitting in the back seat, and her friend didn't have, the seatbelts were stuck. There's like those old school cars. And so the seatbelts were stuck in, inside, and she couldn't pull it out. So it was on our way back home. They were coming off the freeway and they were at the bottom of, the off ramp at the light waiting. And I was asleep in the back. And so my mom's friend's driving, my mom's in the passenger seat. And my mom's friend, she all of a sudden starts saying, "Oh no, oh no, oh no." So I sit up and I turn around, and I remind you, no seatbelt on. I'm in the back, in the center. I turn around and all I see is these lights. And then all of a sudden, boom, we got hit. And when we got hit, everything was like slow motion, as they say, right? I don't know if you've ever been in car accidents, but, and then I literally like felt myself, I was like floating. I felt my arms like this, like almost like someone picking my arms up. And then I just heard like, wrap your arms around the chair and put your head down. And I did that. And so when I wrapped my arms around my mom's chair and I just put my head down. And when we came through the intersection, my mom's like freaking out, like, "Monique, are you okay? Monique, are you?" Because she couldn't see me and didn't know where I was. And I was like, "I'm okay, Mom. I'm fine." Like, I knew someone that was the exact same, and they went through that windshield because they had no seatbelt on. They were in the center. They got hit from behind. And so it's like, I should have flown through that windshield, okay? Because I'm also little at that time. You know what I mean? But no. And I was totally fine. Nothing wrong.
Yeah.
No injuries. Neither was my mom or her friend. But it was like, so it's like things like that have happened in childhood that I just knew that was like, yeah, there's no explanation.
That's incredible.
Like it's,
wow.
You know what I mean? So I experienced stuff like that. And so from being little, and that's why I just knew that God was real.
Yeah.
And
I man, I love that because, it's, very few of us have been able to, experience honestly miracles, to be quite honest with you, that is a miracle without a shadow of a doubt, and very few of us have been able to experience those type of miracles. And like, I think that when you get to experience that, like without a shadow of a doubt, that there is a God, right? And that, some of us might have even experienced miracles and not even attributed it to, that
happens too.
Yeah. Right. So, it's just unfortunate, but that is a beautiful thing. Let me ask you this, Monique, what is the worst piece of advice that you've ever gotten?
Worst piece of advice.
And feel free to take your time, because that's a difficult one, right? Usually the bad stuff, we're like, we file that away.
I mean, I think just the idea and the phrase of like, just do whatever you feel is right. And on the surface, it sounds good, but our feelings are so fickle, and feelings come and go. And one day you could feel this way and the next day you feel another way. And so it's one of those things where it's like, that's actually not good advice. Like, what is right in this situation? Not what you feel, but what actually is the right thing to do? What is actually going to bring about the best outcome? And what is going to provide growth for you as an individual? Instead of just going off of what you feel to do.
Wow.
Which I feel like that plows people's fields crosswise, as they say.
That is another mic drop. Wow. I love that. I love that, because that is literally advice I hear all the time. Whatever feels right. Do whatever feels right. And that is so true. Like, our emotions are so, and it's like that. Like, I could wake up, grab my Starbucks coffee, and then someone cuts me off, and then like immediately I'm mad. You know what I mean? So like, our emotions cannot be trusted. So wow, that is so true. I never thought of that. That is really, really beautiful. Let me ask you this. If you were standing in front of, let's just say an audience of 1,000 people, okay? Doesn't matter the number, 100,000, 10,000 people, right? You're standing in front of an audience of men and women between the ages of 20 and 35. Well, let's just say between the ages of 11, right? Where you kind of got your start in having faith and being disciplined, between 11 and 40, okay? Mixed crowd. If there was one piece of advice you wanted them to take home with them, right? One piece of advice. If they didn't hear a single word of this podcast, they never read a single thing from you, what is like one thing that you could impart onto them?
Important to them would just be that know that you are so loved and you are worth it all, that is why Jesus came for you. That if you were the only person here on earth, Jesus would have came and died on the cross for you. And that is why we even celebrate Good Friday. It's why we celebrate Easter. But it's knowing that you are worth it, that you are worth absolutely everything, that is how important you are to God, is that he gave his son for you. And having an understanding and helping people to know that they're so valuable is what I want to give. Because if you don't think you're worth it, and if you don't think you're worth someone's attention, someone's devotion, someone's love, then you're not going to value yourself. And so having an understanding that God loves you so much, that this is what he did for you because you're worth it. Like that is the thing that I want to instill, because even with young girls, I see that, and young guys, is that you don't realize how valuable, like I know I am valuable. Like I know I am so precious, and like I have such a standard that I am worth absolutely everything. And I say that with complete confidence, not arrogance.
Yeah.
Like I'm worth it. And I could tell you that. Like I have such a confidence, and that's where it came from. And so just have an understanding that you were worth everything. And that's why even people that struggle with suicide, I tell them, no, you're worth it. Like this moment here that you're feeling and experiencing is not going to last forever. This is just a moment in time that you're experiencing, but there's so much more life to live. And you are worth so much more than what you're feeling in the moment and what you're experiencing in the moment. And just having an understanding that you are so loved and so valuable that God gave absolutely everything for you. That's how much you're worth it.
Wow, that's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate that. Monique, thank you so much for taking such a long drive down here. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I would definitely love to have you on more podcasts. You know, I don't know what the future holds for my podcast, but you know, more conversations like this is exactly what I'm looking for. So I really appreciate it. If you could just let everybody know where to find you, either online or social, YouTube, whatever you want to plug, feel free to.
Okay. So Instagram is I am Monique DeLeon, and I have a website, moniquedeleon.com. And that's where you can link through, find everything, my online courses, my blog, my podcast, my mentorship program. You can just go to moniquedeleon.com and you will find everything there. But Instagram is I am Monique DeLeon.
I love that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And we're going to end with a little mic cheers, okay?
Okay. Cheers.
Sweet. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate y'all. Talk to you soon. I love that. All right, so this is what I do to make sure I'm in sync. 1, 2, 3. All right. Awesome. Actually, I got to adjust. That kind of fell a little bit. That is so funny.
I think it's when you bumped, when you had walked by.
Yeah, when I walked by, huh? I was like, never. There's always one thing. It's never perfect. That's okay. We roll with the punches. One time, I got 15 minutes into a podcast, and I didn't hit record. And I was like, guys, we have to start all over again.
That is horrible.
Yeah, it's funny. You'll see that one coming out in a couple weeks. So funny. All right, here we go. Take 2. 1, 2, 3.